Hello and welcome for joining Cavell Group for another podcast interview. Today we're here with Magnus Falk from Zoom. Of course, if you're not familiar with me, my name is Finbar Begley. I am a Cavell analyst and really pleased to be speaking to Magnus today about the wonderful world of unified communications.
Hello, very nice to be with you, Finbar. I'm Magnus Falk. I'm a CIO advisor at Zoom. I spend a lot of my day talking with CIOs and CEOs about using video to support their business processes. And that's been a really relevant conversation in the last year.
Most people, I think at this point are aware of Zoom. You know, your awareness amongst businesses anyway went from, not small to like huge, about like 60-70% from our own research last year, as a direct result of consumer influences, things like that. How are you and the UC market, how's that going for Zoom? I mean, you must be really happy with things so far.
Well, thankfully, we're talking the day after our results were announced, so we're not in our quiet period, and the results speak for themselves that we saw enormous growth last year, and we continue to predict that we have a very large addressable market in certain of our segments. So from a Zoom perspective, last year was a fairly unique experience, quite a humbling experience to be able to help so many people in the time of education requirements, working from home, and just living and being social during lockdown. So we now have a kind of strategy going forward, which I'm happy to talk to you about shortly.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is really the key point, is people turned to Zoom before that connectivity, and then you had the advantage of a whole host of nephews, nieces, relatives for customer service and support, even for the professional side of things. But you do have a more business-focused arm as well, don't you? Which is more UC-orientated for service providers to get involved with and roll out.
Well, Finbar, that was our core business, and is our core business of providing a superb video-first communications to business customers. And clearly, it's very useful for them that all their customers now know how to use Zoom. It really makes a huge difference. But we now see that business market developing into this hybrid approach. We all know that work is not going to be how it was in the past, and we also know it's not going to be as it is today. And I think we're all wanting to land somewhere between those two things with hybrid working. And a lot of people are talking about it, but I don't think anyone really knows exactly what it's going to be. Everyone's predicting it's going to be different, but no one's being precise about exactly how different. And various businesses are making their bets on how they organize their work going forward, balancing return to work schedules in different countries and different approaches, and of course the culture of their organization and exactly what they do. But we think that unified communications is even more important in a hybrid world, where you have to provide communications that level up your remote workers with your ones who are in the office. And this is a really difficult challenge because, of course, the proximity has always worked well in the office, but productivity works well when you're remote. And how do you actually balance those two things up? The other dynamic is that the customer is going to be at home a lot more. And so your business is going to change, and your communications, your unified communications requirements with a customer at home change quite a lot. So there are quite a few dynamics in the unified communications as a service market that mean that innovation will be really important, adapting as businesses learn lessons and want to tweak and want to adjust what they do. So a lot's changing. And the other point I want to make is that I think there's a different role for phone in the unified communication space than there was before. I think that we're seeing that people see phone almost as a support to the meeting, or as a kind of secondary option, or something to fall back to.
Yeah.
So actually the integration of phone with meetings, I think, is now much more important than it used to be in a prior world, and the opportunities to have, one service across all the devices, in your organization makes just a lot of sense. So I think the unified communications market is probably one of the most exciting markets to be in at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, the second, as you say, when you start mixing this sort of hybrid idea of I've now got people back in the office, I've still got key workers at home, all of those challenges that the unified communications market has been dealing with for a while in terms of latency, clarity, response lag, those kind of things all become crucial to that like natural feeling for communications, where that person who's at home doesn't feel like they're at home, they still feel like they're in the room. And it's not that every time they try and speak, because there's a delay, someone else is already talking over them. You really have to find the ways of solving those problems so that it doesn't create that friction, because otherwise people won't feel comfortable working from home. And like offices are downsizing, there is spaces being reduced for companies, so not everyone is expected to come back to the office. So that's what makes it so important.
Let's be clear, it's not just a technology challenge, that one. I think it's important to get the technology right, but there is quite a lot of other things you need to do in order to make a successful hybrid organization work. And I think there's quite a big leadership challenge there around leading in appropriate ways for remote teams. I think there's also, if your leaders go back to the offices and establish their kind of support networks around them, and important people are in the office and non-important people are out, then you've kind of doomed your hybrid attempt right from the start. So getting the leadership right, thinking about talent, thinking about how you transform your business, and also there's a different trust equation. People don't want to return to the office unless there's some kind of safety mechanisms around, and also trusting people to work at home. How do you get the security right around different regulated businesses, etc.? So it's a really interesting dilemma, challenge, opportunity, and the technology is key. And getting the right technology, innovative, integrated solution is really important.
Yeah, we've had this sort of narrative running throughout the pandemic and even slightly before it, just in terms of, how do you build that kind of environment where it is fine to connect in from home, if you can't. And as you say, you have that problem where if you're in the office and you're face to face, you're getting all of that face to face time with your boss. And how does that translate then to home workers feeling like they're equal and valued? Because the biggest thing that came out of our COVID survey last year was leadership is the problem with, it's technology 40%, management problems 50%, security problems another 30, right? And it's like, well, the management just not wanting to let go of you and let you work at home in peace, But then I guess you just have to be able to talk about things, and maybe that's the shift that's coming. It's the technology, but also how people articulate, what's going on. And it becomes okay to say, well, actually, no, I didn't do that thing first thing this morning because my kids were at home and they were running around, but I did it, straight away. And that becomes a normal part of a healthy business environment, maybe.
Well, managing by outcomes has always been the right management approach, rather than managing the inputs. That's difficult in some situations, and some are better at it than others. And I do think we have a generational thing where digital natives are kind of much more comfortable leading in a digital environment. And of course, there are some who really have struggled being, kind of immigrants into the digital environment, and absolutely can't wait to get back into the office.
It's true.
And I can understand that, but if you're a leader and a manager in an organization, it's really important to think about what you do as a signal to the people who you lead. It's always been true, and this is another one of those moments where, if you're saying your business is operating hybrid, if you don't do the same percentage hybrid working or remote working as a leader, then you're just setting, you're creating another problem for your business. And quite frankly, as we get back into booming economies and we get more competition for talent, and I think there's massive competition for talent, people will migrate to the organizations that facilitate them to work in the way that they want to work, rather than okay, so it's all changed and you must now sit outside my office and be there 8 till 7.
Yeah, not to mention the fact that there has been, especially in London and some of the major cities, I definitely know it's happened in America, a large migration of people who maybe they had rented in the city and they've moved out to the countryside. And the only requirement is that it's a nice house with good internet, right? And you're not going to get those people to suddenly start commuting an hour and a half every day back to the office. And they probably having experienced the fresh air in the countryside, don't want to move back to London. So
it's interesting.
You kind of have to manage those.
We've had the boom town concept. We've now got the Zoom town concept.
I think you should trademark that, the Zoom town.
Well, unfortunately, I didn't get to it first. I'm quoting from a US magazine because there are towns in the West, close to Western America, where they're close to national parks or ski areas that have just totally boomed.
My friend lives in one of those areas. He said that what happened was all these people from LA came in, they saw the local house prices and they were just like, well, I'll give you 100K more. That's not a problem.
I'll have one of those.
Give it to me tomorrow. And then the house prices, everyone just put the house prices up by 100,000 because they knew the people would pay. And then, that's how it sort of goes up and up. So I guess that is it. I mean, it does create a lot more problems in terms of distributed security, managing those communications. And are you finding that platforms are adjusting to do this? I know Zoom is primarily cloud-based already, so it's flexible to handle that.
I think there are some key lessons out of what we've seen in the pandemic, and I think the first is speed of innovation. You want to be partnering with an organization that is changing as quickly as you need it to change. That's one of the things that it's just such a joy working at Zoom, is that people say it's tough to keep up with all the stuff you're doing. Well, that's the downside of this.
But it's a good piece of feedback to get.
The speed of innovation. And then people go, so well, some of your competitors publish a massive roadmap. You go, why can't you publish a massive roadmap? So well, because people publish the roadmap because they know they can't get round to it for 2 years, so they put a roadmap out there. We're doing things at the speed of light, so you'll see it in 3 months. Okay. And that ability to react is really important in the pandemic, because people need to build forward with confidence. They need to know that you're going to be able to react to their new need quite quickly. I think the other thing is the scalability. You need to be able to scale up and down really quickly, and we saw that we had to scale up 30 times from the number of daily meeting participants. So I think that's quite an important lesson. And the other thing that a lot of our clients, a lot of the people I work with in the industry are saying is that they suddenly realized that the whole walled garden approach to security on the campus is now, it's gone. People predicting its demise, but it's now kind of, if you're doing that with VPNs back into your walled garden, it's going to have to change at some point. And the getting yourself ready for internet everywhere. So even when you go back into the office and you're just connecting to an internet pipe, in the same way as you would connect to an internet pipe at your home or the coffee shop or anywhere, and making sure that your whole strategy is just around keeping people safe in that internet everywhere. It means that you're not trying to have two things, that you're maintaining all the time, and forcing people to do unnatural acts about, you need to connect to there before you connect to there. So I think that
they won't do it. They won't do it.
So it's quite interesting how that has become this whole pandemic and people working from home and oh my God, everyone's going to have a VPN connection back to the office. Well, maybe we got that wrong. We need to be rethinking that.
Well,
That's
it just
an
didn't
interesting
work,
lesson.
did it? It didn't work. I mean, you hear stories from the early days of when this was kicking off, and the companies who had on-premise VPN routing, it just didn't work. They couldn't manage it. And the second that they got like hybrid and they spun up a virtual one in the cloud, then suddenly things started to flow, and people could actually use the VPNs.
Yeah,
So is that
and
your
being able to do things like media offload at the at the desktop, those sorts of things have come on apace.
Yeah, and the technology, of course, for security and securing things like calling and just VPNs and network access is rising to meet those challenges in terms of the cloud-hosted security packages from like people like Zscaler and stuff like that, who can fit into a lot of modern solutions and secure endpoints, using software and not even using hardware. So it's quite interesting. So that's your main pandemic learning, really, is adapt faster to what's happening. Is that your takeaway from the last year?
Well, I think those are some of the key lessons. Of course, there's the, what do we do next? But the things that outlined those organizations that you want to partner with, who can cope with these sorts of events, because what's the next one? We have no idea what the next major world event's going to be.
Hopefully good weather and clear skies for at least 1 year.
Is that your prediction, Finbar?
Optimism rather than prediction. Let's just have a nice calm year, no storms, just
But I do think that there've been some key lessons about how businesses should what they should be doing to make sure they stay connected to customers and each other. And I think those lessons come out that I think people have realized that unified communications isn't just about, right, it is time now to do some communication, right, invoke my communication application in order to have a communication. Communication is part of the business process today. And what we've see is that people have interactions or transactions that really seamless to buy, to book things, but then suddenly something goes wrong, or you need some help, and you then need to get straight to a really in-person support event. That transition from seamless customer focused transaction to full fat, highly communicative interaction, needs to be done within your business process, within the thing that you create and support. And so what we're seeing businesses increasingly do is incorporate their unified communication tool in the heart of their business process. So, it's kind of click to touch, click to talk, click to have a video communication. As part of the, you're going through an application process, it's created a calendar event, it's already sent you, the Zoom link in order to have that. And now we're seeing the next wave of integration where people are building functionality into the meeting. So we've announced, and we're just about to launch this thing called Zoom Apps, where right in the heart of the meeting, you can review documents, sign documents, transfer money between each other, do a big whiteboarding session, save the whiteboarding, with context to chat, pick it up next time. You want to have those, communications which are fully, what's the right word? Supportive of your business process. And so unified communication becomes ever more integrated with the business process. And I think, and that can be in support of a business process, or where the business process is in itself the communication, making sure you have the right functionality available within that communicative tool. And so I think that is the massive evolution and opportunity ahead, where this world that we've discovered becomes yet richer.
I mean, it's that frustration of, well, I'm Zoom calling you, so I have to open another application on my computer, share the screen, only I can type on it, only I can make changes, so you have to call out everything to me, rather than actually being able to work collaboratively on a call. So I mean, that does sound like a good next step. Personally, I mean, I would use that kind of thing. And it really, will probably do a lot to help things work more smoothly.
Well, judging by how our clients are reacting to it, I think it's going to come to a business process that you'll be using very soon.
Okay, there we go. I won't take that as a hard promise, but maybe I will if you're developing things at the speed of light. So I guess, I mean, just, looking at the time, is there any sort of last words or takeaways you'd like to give to the UC industry from Zoom?
Well, I think it's been an amazing year to be in unified communications, and I think we'll all look back, and this will be one we'll bore our grandchildren about. So it's really nice to be in an industry which has been so important to the world in this year, and I think there's yet more fun and games to come. So hang on to your hats.
If I was wearing a hat, I would definitely be holding on to it, but that's all right. I've never looked good in them. It's okay. Anyway, thanks everyone for listening. Of course, Cavell Group and Zoom, very happy to have you here. And of course, thank you for listening through the whole podcast. And, if you're interested in hearing more from experts like myself and Magnus, please do come along to the Cavell CloudCom Summit on the 17th and 18th of March. It is virtual. There's going to be 2 days of really great discussions. It's going to be really in depth. So thanks once again, Magnus, for coming along. It's been a great conversation here today.
Thank you very much, Finbar. Really nice to have a chat with you. But it's felt like a chat rather than a podcast.
That is, in my opinion, how all podcasts should feel, because, if you want to go and see an interview, you can get a really rigid script out by a journalist to do those kind of things. But conversations reveal a lot more interesting things in the middle.